Well, good evening all out there, and welcome to tonight's Young Investors Club webinar. As always, at this time of year when daylight saving kicks in, we always seem to catch a few people out. It's easy for myself being in Queensland, obviously, because we're not receiving daylight saving. The one state I think that should get it, but we don't. But we'll leave that topic for now. But so thanks for all those who have managed to come along tonight. Now I might just get just to check my audio is coming through okay. Can someone just perhaps send me a quick chat message in the box there to the right, just saying, yep, can hear you, Jake, just to make sure I'm not talking to myself there. Yep, audio good. Thanks very much, Marco. Excellent. Okay, so tonight what we're going to do is, so hopefully you've all heard from me before or seen my name. So my name's Jake Saul. I'm the Young Investors Club president, and I've been doing this role for a number of months now, and I've recently been travelling to a few different states, Melbourne, New South Wales most recently, doing a few presentations and catching up with our Young Investors Club members, and it's really been fantastic to meet many of you, and hopefully a few of you on tonight. We've had some great events, and the sort of feedback I've been receiving is they really appreciate hearing our own stories, testimonials, I guess. Everyone's situation's a bit different, but being able to hear from those people who are actively and proactively doing what we're sort of educating our members with has received really good feedback. So luckily in New South Wales last week we heard from a couple of young investors ambassadors over there, and it's not all roses. There's the tough times as well, but I guess that's where having that support base like the Property Club and the Young Investors Club, sharing our stories and our experiences is really helps put you in good stead for building your own portfolio, I guess. So yeah, what we're going to do tonight is I'm going to quickly talk to you just about my own story. Now, I haven't done this on a webinar yet, and like I said, I've done it a couple of events recently. So if you've heard it before, I apologise. I won't take long, but we'll get through that, and then afterwards I've got Ivan Barton, who's our ambassador over in West Australia. He's with us tonight, which is fantastic. So Ivan will then come on once I've spoken and sort of share his story and his path with investing, and also now that of his children who he's introduced to the Young Investors Club and the Property Club, and how that's sort of shaping their future moving forward. So just a general disclaimer quickly for all. I'll just let you read that. So yeah, this is just general information. Obviously, your own wealth creation plan is that of your own, and you need to seek independent professional advice. But yeah, we're just sharing some of our own stories. So please, if you please seek the advice of other professionals in this field. Always good to get that one out of the way. So what I'm going to do, like I said, is just briefly run you through my background. So there's a picture of myself, my wife, and my young son. We've got an 11-month-old son. He's currently sleeping at the moment, so touch wood, his dad doesn't wake him up. I'm sure he'll be fine. He's a good little sleeper. So you can see there, myself and my wife, 32 and 28, and we've got 6 properties in our portfolio, worth over $3 million, and we're just from average income background. So I was just a gardener, a landscaper, and my wife was a PA, so not by any means on huge incomes, but steady enough and solid enough to be able to build quite a good sized portfolio, and we continue to do that. And it's only since joining the Property Club that we've been able to receive that information and have the confidence, I guess, also to go on that investment journey and get to the point where we're at now. So a bit of a background on myself, I guess, before Property Club, and like many young people I see as well. So having a bit of a tradie background, you want to utilise those skills and try and build some quick equity and money to set you up for life. And look, for me, so I was only 19 at the time, and bought a couple of cheap properties. This was in Mandurah when I lived in West Australia, and did some work on them. Like I said, I think they were 55 and 60,000. So you'd struggle to get anything for that sort of price now. So that was about what are we now? 13 years ago, I bought those. But yeah, look, as you can see from a couple of the pictures there, I struggled to find some pictures, but I did like a back pergola there, redid a bathroom and that sort of thing. So look, I did make a little bit of money, but spent a bit as well. And the thing you don't really take into account when you're doing it all is that the time you're away from earning your normal income, you're spending on your own property. So you're not really paying yourself a wage. So by the time you factor in all those costs, potentially it's not as strong as you would like to think. And look, I did make some money, so I did them up and sold them fairly shortly after. Did make a little bit of money, but I guess I was quite lucky in when I did. The timing of it was quite good, so the market at that time, probably before most people time listening, but in Mandurah that was sort of the boom place in Australia really. So it was more timing and not my skills and refurbished ability that made me create that money. And yeah, look, you hear all the good things, but there was some obviously mistakes that were made and costly ones. And I must say, I think it's a lot more competitive nowadays. You see all these renovation shows on TV, and similar tradies trying to utilise those skills. They've got mates who owe them labour, and I'm not. It's not a terrible strategy, but it can be one where if you don't quite get it right, you can come unstuck and cost you a lot of money. So since then, and with the property club, I've sort of changed my strategy. Not saying that you can't use both, so buying and holding plus renovating and things like that. But for me, the property club strategy is the one I've employed and has proved the one to work for me best. So that was before the property club. So that was back in 04, and it wasn't until 2009. So this was actually my wife. So she actually purchased a property, when she was younger as well. So her father introduced her to the property club, and helped her get into the market at a very young age. And you can see that's really set not only her up but us up. So that Sydney property there, you can see now that was a few years old, slightly second hand, but we purchased that. Well, my wife purchased that back in 09 for 294, and 540 is probably a conservative val. I think that was done last August, so it's probably a little bit higher than that. So we'd all like a piece of that, wouldn't we? So that was, and the Sydney market remained quite flat for a number of years after that. It's only the last 3 or 4 years or so where we've really seen some growth there. Want you to notice as well, a big thing we talk about and part of the education process is diversifying. Okay, so you can even see by the pictures of my properties, they're all different types of properties. So Sydney's a two-bedder and quite a large complex. The one there you see in Adelaide is like in a villa in a small body corporate. The next one's a larger body corporate. So we hear the word diversification a lot with what we talk about. So not only the property type, but the property location, and even your banks and things like that. So the key is not to put all your eggs in one basket. And I guess that goes what I was saying before about renovating and flipping. You don't want to do that all the time. You might have that happening in the background, but you also want to try and create some passive wealth like we've sort of done here. So look, I'll just show you those other properties we got. So that was back in 09, and we really couldn't. Sorry if you can see my mouse moving around, a bit fidgety. So that was back in 09. So we really sat on our hands, I guess, till 2013. Now this was a property we actually purchased outside of the property club, and it was at a time where we had some friends moving out back overseas. So there was the opportunity that came out where we were able to purchase this property, a little bit cheaper, but fully furnished and everything like that. So at the time, it was a good investment for us. Would I be investing in Adelaide now? Potentially not. I might look elsewhere. But that's been a solid property for us. Our outgoings are pretty much pays for itself. We've got good tenants, good body corporate. So it hasn't done a huge amount capital growth wise, as you can see there by the figures, but there's no point us selling it. We're better off just holding on to it, and the market in Adelaide is starting to move a little bit at the moment. So then you can see the next one we bought in the Gold Coast, so that was the following year. So what happened there was we had the opportunity to move up to Brisbane, mostly for my work, so not landscaping but doing property club stuff. And we've always been of the mindset when we've had the ability to purchase, we've taken that chance. So because we were moving to another state, we were unsure of, what exactly our employment situation would be. So while we could still get approvals from the banks and things like that, we took the opportunity to buy another investment property, because if we'd moved to Brisbane before doing so, and let's just say I ended up in a different industry, or the wife, it would have been probably another couple of years before we would have been in the position to be able to purchase. So we went ahead and bought a second-hand property there, so it wasn't new again. It was only a few years old, but second-hand. But that's been a very strong rental performer, that one. So we probably net at least 6% return on that. It's helped hold up our portfolio. And the Gold Coast, it's in Upper Coomera, so for those who know, that's quite a thriving suburb. Westfield and Commonwealth Games coming, and there's lots of good stuff happening there, so we're quite happy with that property. You can then see, so after the wait from the Sydney one, we needed to wait to build a bit of equity, but once we did have some equity there, we were able to purchase some properties quite quickly after that. The second one is always, and I say this to my young people, is probably the hardest one. The first one, you've got the ability to save up a deposit and buy it as your own home, potentially, using cash savings a lot of the time. But the second one, you either need to save up a mix of cash or wait for the property to grow in value. So the second one tends to be the one that can take a little bit longer. But once you're away and going, you find that the more you have, the easier it is then to keep purchasing more, because you only need one or two properties to perform out of a selection to be able to keep buying. So you can see there, our next one was in Brisbane. There we've got covered. So we've got New South Wales, we had Adelaide, then the Gold Coast, now Brisbane. That one in Brisbane's a one better. So I didn't mention Coomera is a townhouse. So we've really spread, like I said, not only location but property type, and what kind of dwelling you're buying into. So that was a couple of years ago. We've had the same tenant in there since. We haven't had a huge amount of growth, but it's just ticking along. It's in a great position. Fantastic rental return on that. We've found that our one better there is probably our best performer in regards to rental, and so that's a really affluent suburb. So that's been a good one. And then you can see, so once we had 4 investment properties before we bought our own home, and we knew that if we were to purchase your own home, it's a bit of a noose around your neck, because you've got this bad debt which you're not receiving any rent on, you're not getting any negative gearing deductions or any not able to minimise any tax or anything there. So we sort of call it a bad debt, and you'll tend to find that if you start with your own home, it can be harder to build a portfolio. So we waited until we had some investment properties before we went and purchased our own home. And your needs do change as you get older. And so, but now we've got a young family, we're growing, we're sort of set where we are, and we've put some foundations in place, and we're not going to be moving anywhere for a while. You can see there that the capital growth, we still did use all the things we learnt through the property club, even buying, I guess, in the location of the property, not necessarily the property type. You can see there, yes, it has done well in a growth sense, but for an investment, you wouldn't buy it. It's a nice looking house from the outside, but I guess we're a full-time caretaker of the house. The old weatherboards, they need a lot of work, and if it was a rental property, you wouldn't be able to afford to keep it. You don't receive quite a strong rental yield as you might on a newer property or a unit or a townhouse. The maintenance costs through the roof. So if you had you'd have traders going in every week fixing up nooks and crannies. So although the equity might have grown a little bit more there than, say, the one to the left of that in Hawthorn, there's no way we'd be able to afford to hold on to that asset, because that we'd probably be out of pocket a good $250, $300 a week, I would think, holding that property there. And then you can see, so just recently, we had our son late last year, and we thought, oh, we're not going to, that'll probably do us for another year or so, but no, Dad got his way, and we were able to purchase another property there in Darwin. And like I said, we've diversified there. So the Darwin market, it's quite flat at the moment, but the rental returns up there are very strong. 6 years at 6% rent guarantee. So that's really helped hold up our portfolio, and keep us sort of cash flow neutral, even with a few being now on principal and interest repayments. So look, there's a quick snapshot. We're still going to buy some more properties. We're at 6 at the moment. We haven't really set a number in place, but the way I see it, the more properties we have, the more options we have. If we need to sell some down the track or whatever, we can do that. But the power of property, and I always think back to that Sydney property. I mean, if we were trying to buy a Brisbane property now at $800,000, there's no way we'd be able to save up the funds to be able to do that. Whereas we're able to sort of crawl before we could climb. So we started with lower entry price property price point, and then with that equity build up, and then able to purchase subsequent properties. So that's the power of property. So just a couple of key numbers, I guess, from our portfolio, which I find interesting, and a few of you might as well. So, and you'll probably have some questions from it all. But so our rental turnover from those properties it's over $100,000, so about $115,000. So you can see we're not talking small money. It's quite a substantial amount of money. So part of having a portfolio of properties, you need to treat it like a business. So you need to be on top of all your paperwork, all your outgoings, your management. There's a huge amount to it, a huge amount to learn. I'm still learning every day about it, but it's as much as a small business can generate. So you really need to pay close attention and take good care of your portfolio. There's a pre-tax cost. So just so you know, so if we were to stop working, say, and we didn't have any tax deductions, it costs us around about $7,500 to hold that whole portfolio. So that's not including our own home, but our investment properties before tax costs us about $7,500. Now that's including a couple of them paying off some principal as well. So you can see there and the changes in the lending environment at the moment has meant that we've changed a couple of principal and interest, which is not a bad thing. I mean, at the end of the day, you're trying to make some equity in these properties, so if you're paying down the debt at the same time, that just quickens the process. So don't just think you need interest only. Principal and interest, and the rate's right, and it's certainly a lot easier to get finance these days with a principal and interest product as well. And I spoke about, try not to read these slides here, I spoke about bad debt. So I guess bad debt is anything that's not giving you a tax advantage, or it's a growing asset. So obviously your own house, but things like, a lot of things aren't avoidable. You still got to live, but things like credit cards, car loans, things like that, they're bad debt. So good debt is investment property, bad debt, your own home, cars, that sort of stuff. We've always leveraged as high as possible, I guess, because we're younger, and I'm talking to you guys as a younger audience too. Leveraging high, which means you borrow a larger a portion of the property type, means you're able to build your portfolio quicker. So it's called LVR, loan to value ratio. So you'll find that generally banks and lending will talk in terms of 80%. Anything higher than that, you pay a thing called lender's mortgage insurance. But we've found, we've always tried to leverage at 90, even 95% in the past when we were able to do so, as that's enabled us to grow our portfolio quicker. And we've got longer to let those properties grow in value, to then, let our LVR, or loan to value ratio, decrease, because that's the goal. If you're starting the process a bit later, then perhaps you wouldn't leverage as high. You might borrow 70 or 80% worth of the asset. But being younger and having more time to be able to let those properties grow in value, we've always leveraged high. If we just did 80s, I'd say we might have 2 or 3 properties, but because we're able to do 90s, we've got 6. And there you go, 7 banks. So like I said, we diversify not only where we buy, the property type, location and that, but also your lender. So we don't have an affiliation of one bank. That's where our club broker finds us the best product at the time, and away we go from there. So it might sound confusing having 7 banks, but I really need to only operate out of one, which is called our lock underneath there. That's your line of credit. It's basically one bank runs all the other loans and facilities and things like that. So it might sound like a lot of work, but it's all streamlined and it's quite a great process. And that's something we learned through the property club. I mean, you can Google all this stuff you want, but you know, we've got all the information here that we've been learning for 25 years off the strategies of other people. So yeah, that's been a really good way for us to run our portfolio, and that's how a lot of our members do as well. And it may sound boring, but treat it as business. As you can see, we're generating income that of a small business, so you need to treat it like one. So you need to take care of your properties and don't take anything for granted. So it really is a big business. You're talking $3 million worth of property, so you need to be very hands-on with it. So that's a quick snapshot of my story there. Feel free to send me any chat requests with some questions you might have. You can do that privately or publicly, whatever you like to do. Or feel free to send me an email. I'll be more than happy to talk about you know, what we've done and what other members of the property club are doing also. So just a quick reminder. So we've got, for those over in Perth, we're heading over there. So my old stomping ground back in Perth. So we're over there in a couple of weeks' time. It's the same time as the MotoGP, unfortunately, but I'm hoping I'll be able to tape that and watch that. But that should be a really good afternoon. It's going to be quite a relaxed environment. You'll get to hear from some other young investors, not just myself, but other people over there doing similar things, and just a great relaxed environment where you can ask any questions you like. We'll have some finance experts there as well, so it's not just me talking or Ivan. You'll have some other people there as well, and a great way for you to fast track your investment journey, that's for sure. And you know, surround yourself with other people doing the same sort of thing. It's nice, you know, talking to younger people and not feeling like you need to talk to, you know, your parents and other people like that. So, you know, surrounding yourself with those like-minded investors, it's a really great little atmosphere. So I'd be great if you could all come to that. I've put a little the details in the chat box over to the right. So there's a link there where you can click the link and find out some more details and register there. It's a free event, so it'd be great to have you along. So what I'm going to do now is hand over to Ivan. So Ivan, as I mentioned before, is our YIC ambassador over in WA, has been for a number of years, and a great member of the property club. He's also a property mentor like myself, and you've all got your own property mentors. But what I'd like to do with Ivan, we're not going to do a death by PowerPoint. So Ivan's going to you know, just talk to us about his experiences with property and how he came across the property club, and also now how he's been able to help his young family into the property market also. So Ivan, welcome aboard, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thanks, Ivan.
Thanks, Jake. No problem at all. You can hear me okay?
Yep, perfect. Loud and clear. All yours.
Beautiful. That's great. Thanks, Jake. Well, listen, thanks for your story and your presentation. Whilst there are some similarities for some of the stuff that you've said, one of the major points of difference is that I'm not, my wife and I are not quite as young as Jake. We started a lot later. But the first point I want to make with that, I mean, there's no wrong time to start investing in property. You know, there's a lot of people, a lot of examples of people that started a lot later in investing than we have. But the point of the matter is, you know, no matter what age you are, the most important point to consider and get your head around is to do something, to educate yourself, and familiarise yourself with the strategy and do it. And as Jake said, if you it provides options for you. Don't know what those options are going to look like when we retire, but at the end of the day, we've got options, and we've got the options provide choice to us in future life. So yeah, my wife and I,
just quickly, sorry, Ivan, sorry to interrupt. It's a little bit gravelly on your end. Do you have any internet boxes or anything open? Are you able to close out of anything? If not, it's fine, but maybe if you've got anything open in the background there, you might be able to just click it off.
Okay. Let me just try that. Okay. If it's still not any better, I can phone through, Jake, if that would make it easier. But would you prefer that?
Perhaps if you phone through, yeah, must be a WA thing over there, Ivan, that's all right. But yeah, perhaps
no worries.
Just phone through, that'd be fantastic. Thanks for that.
I got one sec.
In the meantime, just while we're waiting for Ivan to call in, look, if you've got any questions, we've got the chat box over there on the right, so feel free to send one in private or to all. Happy to answer any questions, whatever they may be. Like I said, we can always take them offline if you don't want them shared, but more than happy at any time to address any of your questions and even some feedback as well. So we run these webinars for you guys. If there's any specific topics you'd like covered in our webinars, please just send them through, and more than happy to take that on board. So Ivan, I might just get you back online. Just chatting through the internet will be fine rather than calling through. Sometimes we do have dramas with the phone call as well, and it's not really playing ball at the moment. So Ivan, just log back in, and it wasn't horrible. So we'll just go from there. That'll be fine. Thanks, Ivan.
You there, Jake?
Yeah, I am, Ivan. Yeah, look, just go ahead and talk online. Like you said, sometimes when we do the phone calls, because it doesn't work all that good. So let's just go ahead with the computer audio, and I'm sure it'll be fine. And that's a lot clearer wherever you're standing now. Just stay there.
Oh, okay, that's great. Yeah, so as I said, my wife and I, we were introduced to the club late 2010. Prior to that, we invested in tax-effective trees and commercial property syndicates. Unfortunately, it didn't produce a return for us. So we thought let's take a look at the traditional bricks and mortar. And I guess one one failing that that we made is that we didn't realise that we could actually access the equity in our own home earlier than we did. So in late 2010, we'd paid our house off. When we started down this journey, we decided that's what we would do. But if we knew what we knew now, we would have started a lot earlier than we did once we had some equity in our own home. So the first property we bought in 2010 was a townhouse in YIC in Queensland. Then in 2011, we bought an apartment in Killara, New South Wales. 2013, we bought 3 properties in Kewdale, WA. St Clair in Adelaide, Baldivis in WA. 2014, we acquired another property in Leederville in WA, and then 2015 we rounded our portfolio off with one in the Gold Coast, and the final property we bought was in Darwin. So you know, we went pretty hard, pretty quick, because we needed to, given I guess the late start that we had. We were able to do that because we had good equity in our own home, and we put the foot down and away we went. So you know, the 8 properties that we've acquired are all through the property club. I would hazard a guess, if it wasn't for the property club, our portfolio wouldn't be the size that it is. For us, it's been very educational, very supportive, and a lot of fun in working with the property club to acquire the portfolio that we have. We've got about $4.2 million worth of property, and we owe about 3.8, so we've got about $400,000 worth of equity in our portfolio at this point in time. You know, and the other thing that we've done, not only with our own portfolio, but also, as Jake said, to educate and support our 2 kids in looking at some investment properties as well. In 2012, we assisted our eldest son and middle daughter at the age of 22 and 21 respectively. Whilst they were still living at home, we helped them fund their deposit on buying their first investment property in Victoria Point in Queensland. That's the house. And whilst they're at home paying some board to us, they focused on and being committed to paying that deposit back to us, which they did that. And in fact, before they left home in 2015, at the age of 25 and 24, they secured their second investment property in Ashby, WA, and the purpose of that purchase was always to be an owner-occupier house. They bought it initially to be an investment property, and once again, while they're still living at home, they rented that out. They took the advantage of the first homeowners grant from over in WA here, and then in 11 months after they purchased it, so you know, I think March last year, they shifted into the house as a brother or sister combination, and now they're enjoying you know, living in that together. It's never going to be an owner occupier for them jointly forever. But you know, it enabled them to shift out of home and get used to running their own household, and eventually, you know, one of them might buy the other one out to live in it, or they might both shift out and to be another investment product. So you know, it's been tremendous discipline for them, and it's been a very, very good force saving mechanism for them. And now, you know, at 26 and 27, to have essentially 2 properties, one investment property and one they're living in at the moment, is been really, really good and very powerful for them. And I wish I had the same opportunity, you know, as they've got at their age, like you know, Jake and Nikki has, and a lot of you guys have or are planning to do as well. So yeah, you know, my tip is to educate yourself as much as you need, plan a strategy, and once you're confident and you've got the capacity to do something about it, put the foot down and go for it. and you'll certainly benefit from it, in a lot of ways over a lot of years. So that's my story, Jake, and how we help the kids. And yeah, looking forward to to meeting as many of you can attend the Young Investors Club workshop in WA in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, that's brilliant, Ivan, and that's another example of how everyone sort of comes from a little bit of a different background, and but also different strategies that individuals can employ on how to build that portfolio. So we heard from Ivan; he started a little bit later in life, but had substantial equity in their property, but then he was able to also utilise that to be able to help his kids into property at a younger age, and that's sort of part of what we're looking at doing as well. Inadvertently, is helping our family get into the market, when they're at that age, because we know property prices aren't going to slow down, and the cost is just going to keep going up. So having the ability to have some equity there in some other properties and helping our kids in the future being able to get in the property markets it's a great thing to be able to do, absolutely. And the power of property. You can ask your own parents, what they purchased their place they lived in and what it's worth now. Good luck trying to save up the money to be able to do something like that. So property is such a powerful thing, and it's just great hearing from people like Ivan and others. How they've been able to succeed using property. So, look, we've had one question come through from Emma. Now, it's a bit of an accounting question, this one. Any strategies regarding tax incentive when renovating properties? I can't really go into too much detail because I'm not an accountant. It's important to, and they've changed recently as well, back on May 9th on the budget this year, regarding depreciation on plant equipment, which is you basically anything inside the walls. Which if you acquire a second-hand property from that date on, you can't actually claim depreciation there. I guess that's one thing to think about with second-hand stuff. It's a good idea to, previously basically anything though new that you put into that property that can then become depreciating. So I guess getting a quantity surveyor's report is important on a property, especially if you're making improvements to that property. But you're talking about renovating property, so also the building component. So you can claim over 40 years depreciation on the building. So that's one little thing you should think about. We will run webinars in the future. I might even get Nicole Kelly, so she's my accountant, plus Kevin Young, the founder of the Property Club. She does a lot of Property Club events, and perhaps I could get an accountant on to do one of these webinars and ask some of your questions, because look, I do know the answers to a few, but it's not really my field of expertise to be explaining those things. So, but very good question there. And that's one thing that's often overlooked, particularly with second-hand properties, is the tax allowances that are still there. So that's a good one, Emma, and that's a good point you raised. Maybe we need to we'll get an accountant on to do one of our webinars in the future. So many thanks there, Ivan. So like Ivan said, we're going to be over in Perth in a couple of weeks' time. To do a YIC workshop over there. Like we mentioned, we're going to have a broker over there as well, and that's that can be your first. Really needs to be your first thing you need to know is your abilities from a finance perspective. So how much could you potentially borrow? What sort of funds are you going to need in place to be able to complete a purchase? So until you have those goals in place and those parameters, you're sort of a little bit aimless. So it's very important to be aware of where your finances are at, and a great way of doing that is completing a finance wealth check form. So what you can do there is request off your property mentor just one of these finance forms. What it does is it's just really a conversation starter between you and one of our independent brokers. and they can just give you an idea of where you sit currently and maybe a few little strategies that you can put in place to help improve your capacity and what sort of goals you may need to set yourself. So it's a simple form, takes you 5 minutes. It's not a hit on your credit file or anything like that, but it's a great way for you to get an idea of where you're at. And most of the time, you'll be surprised. You're probably in a better position than you think. A big thing that doesn't help is the media beat up, I guess, saying, how much deposit you need to purchase a property and young people are going to be able to afford it. But a lot of the time there's a lot of untruth in that. So a great way to be sure is to do one of those finance forms. I'll give you a quick example. So I had one come through a couple of days ago. He was at one of our workshops. Was told by his bank, so he just started his own business, own Sparky business, and he's been doing it for 14 months, and his bank said, come back in after you've had 2 years full worth of financials. Until that time, we're not going to be able to lend you any money. We need at least 2 years. Got him in contact with the broker. The broker was able to send him to a different lender who only required 1 year's worth of financials, and now he's on his way to buying a property. So instead of thinking he needed to wait another year to show proof of income, just by simply not going to his bank around the corner who he normally deals with, he was able to get in contact with our broker who got him onto a different lender, and now he's in the process a year earlier than he thought he was going to be able to get into the market. So it's little things like that you and I, there's no way that we can know that stuff. But that's what a broker does. They find the best lender for your individual circumstance and help you out that way. So I encourage you, if you haven't done one, in the last few months, ask your mentor to send you one. And if you don't know who your mentor is, by all means, just send me a quick email, and I can get you in contact with them. All right, so we'll leave it there tonight, nice and short and snappy. So thanks for joining us on this Wednesday night. And really appreciate your attendance. So like I said, if you've got any other questions, please just email them through. Any constructive feedback, that'd be great. I'd like to thank Ivan for his time tonight. It's nice and early over there in Perth, so it's always hard this time of year keeping up with where things are at with time frames. But big thanks to Ivan, and look forward to seeing many of you over in Perth in a few weeks' time. So enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll be in touch soon. Just quickly, this has been recorded, so I'll send you all out a recorded version as well, and a link to the details for this event. All right, take care, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your night, and we'll be in touch soon. Cheers.